Oh hello, welcome to another Tabletop Impulse video, and today, as promised, we will have the rundown for the Kroot Farstrider Kinband. Apologies that my camera is looking really washed out. I've fiddled with it and I don't quite know what the issue. Did that fix it? Maybe it did. Let's carry on. So, the last of our 4 rundowns of the new teams from the big drop of 4 teams that we had, the Kroot. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I've done these in the order in which I'm the most enthusiastic about them. So we have the Farstriders first, followed by the Navy, followed by the Galloppox, and bringing up the rear, here come the Kroot. But let's try and review them in a fair and upbeat kind of a manner. So you got the Farstrider Kinband kill team. They got access to recon and seek and destroy, which are okay. You know, it's not security, but they're okay decks. They're not awful decks. You know, there's some quite doable things in recon, especially. Operatives. So you take your kill broker. He's got 3 weapon options: the Kroot rifle and blade, the pulse carbine and blade, or the pulse rifle and blade. So the Kroot rifle and blade, you can reject that out of hand. That's just the standard. You can take the generic weapon for some reason if you'd want to, I guess, because in 40k they'll want the box to do double duty, right? And maybe in 40k you can put a cheaper gun on your sergeant. So really you're choosing between the carbine and the rifle. We'll come on to that more when we look at the kill broker's card. They have pros and cons. Essentially the carbine is the fun choice and the rifle is probably the more kind of correct choice. And then you've got, I've written 8 specialists, which is wrong. It's 8 specialists, sorry, 8. Because you're picking 10 from this list, right? Now, if you look at this, you've got the bow hunter, the cold blood, the cut skin, the heavy gunner, the long sight, the pistolier, the stalker, and the tracker, which is 8, which leaves you 2 slots left at the end. And you're effectively filling those last 2 slots with either 2 Kroot hounds, or 2 warriors, or 1 warrior and 1 Kroot hound. Now, you do get the 2 Kroot hounds in the box, so initially that's going to be the way you're going to run it out of 1 box. I think you're going to end up wanting 2 boxes if this is a team that you want to do, deeply. You want to deeply invest into. And yeah, you've got your heavy gunner as well. Now the heavy gunner's got 2 options. I really like the Skinner, the Dvorgite Skinner, but I can see an option for why you might sometimes want to take the Triblast. So again, I think if you're building these out of 1 box, you build the Dvorgite Skinner, and if you have that second box, then you might get some mileage of having the Triblast available. In terms of abilities, they're kind of a simple ability team. Interestingly, considering that they're quite mechanically quite weak, but there you go. They're a single ability team. They've got Rogue. What Rogue essentially means, if you're in cover, you can either retain 2 cover saves instead of just 1, or you can retain a critical save instead of a normal cover save. So the nice thing about this is that you can see the attack dice that are coming in at you and work out which of these 2 options that you want when you make your decision. So I think a pretty strong ability, more meaningful in the overworld when there's going to be much more cover going around than into the dark, but I think a good ability overall. Rogue, solid, helpful, it's going to help you stay alive, which, as we're going to see in a minute with the stat block, with 8 wounds and a 5-up save, we need a little bit of help from something like this to stay alive, okay? So here's our kill broker, so here's our leader. So standard of move of 3 circle, 2 APL, GA1, def 3, 5-up save. He's got 9 wounds. The basic Kroot have 8 wounds. He's got an extra wound because he's the leader. And he's got a choice of weapons. So the Kroot rifle, 4 dice hitting on 3 is 3-4. The carbine, 4 dice hitting on 4 is 4-4. And the pulse rifle, 4 dice hitting on 4 is 4-5. Now I reckon the Kroot rifle's not worth considering. Some people will like it for the 3-up, 3s to hit. Personally, I think you want to go with the pulse rifle for that 4-5, but there is a reason why you might take the carbine. So we're going to look at the card here, laser pointer here. So if you take the carbine, which is weaker, you lose this point of crit. You gain a photon grenade, effectively. It's like equipment. So you select 1 enemy operative visible to the operative, you roll a d6, -1 from the result. If it's not within your line of sight, and if it's more than red from you. And until on a 2+, until the end of the turning point, you subtract circle from the enemy's movement characteristic. It can't dash, and you can perform this operative only once, equipped with its only if it's equipped with the pulse carbine, and it can't perform the action when engagement range of an enemy operative. That's fun and clever and interesting. I personally think I prefer the extra punch of the pulse rifle to having that grenade, but I'm sure it's an extra thing to keep track of and to work out how you want to use, right? But if you can see straight away, oh yeah, that'd be awesome for this, this, and this, then you go for it. But personally, I think that the pulse rifle is the way I would probably go. He also has this ability which is Call the Kill. Call the Kill is really important. So once in each strategy phase, when it's your turn to use a strategic ploy or pass, you can select one enemy operative visible to the operative until the end of the turning point. Each time a friendly Farstrider Kinband operative, so anyone in your kill team, fights in combat or makes a shooting attack against the operative, in the roll attack dice step of the combat or shooting attack, before rolling your attack dice, you can retain one successful normal hit without rolling it, which I think is pretty good. Okay, you need that because you can see from these 4+, the base BS of the Kroot's going to be 4+. So you need things to help you get around that negative, that 4+. The Kill Broker's just got a normal blade, 3 dice hitting on 2s, 3, 4. You can, for 2 EP, buy him the Ritual Blade, which ups the damage to 4, 5. Like, why are they making the leader pay 2 EP for that? Like, surely he could just have that on his card. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Like, surely that wouldn't make him the most powerful thing in the world. When you consider, like, the novitiate sergeant just has a power sword and has a bit, you know, do you know what I mean? There's lots of sergeants out there that have power sword plasma pistol from, like, the earlier bespoke teams and things like that. And it's like, well, couldn't you just give him the 4-5 sword? Why'd you got to make him pay 2 EP for that? It's kind of offensive, but it's there. Maybe you buy it, maybe you don't. We'll talk more when we get to equipment, but it is an option for the Kroot Kill Broker, so I thought I'd share it on this page. The Bow Hunter, so the first of our many, many shooting specialists. I really like the Bow Hunter. The Bow Hunter, I reckon, even if you just had this glide arrow, which is the 4 dice hitting on 4s, 3, 4 silent, you'd take that, right? You'd be like, yeah, that's cool. You've also got the option, instead of firing a fused arrow, which is 4, 5 AP1, or a volcanic arrow, which is 3, 2, splash 2. So 3, 2, but splash 2, so 3, 4 effectively with the area of effect as well. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And then he's got this energize ability. So for 1 AP, until the end of the activation, all the profiles gain lethal 5 up. And you can't perform that while within engagement range of an enemy operative. So if you have him set up, he's in position ready to go, you can energize and then fire and get lethal 5 up as well on top of your other things. I think that's really good. I think that's really good. He's hitting on 4s. It's like I said when I talked about the leader, you're going to be using abilities like this Call the Kill to try and get around the fact that you're hitting on 4s with all your dudes, but it is what it is. He's a pretty good ranged character. So from one ranged character to another, so the Cold Blood is very much kind of in the veteran mould of things. So you'll notice he's hitting on 3s with his Kroot rifle, and he's on 9 wounds. And he hasn't just got a Kroot rifle, he gets the piercing shot and the toxin shot for free. So these are things you can purchase for equipment points, and the Cold Blood's getting them for free. And you can use each one twice. Normally they're one use only with the limited rule. He can use each one twice. So the piercing shot's really good. It just modifies his Kroot rifle to give it AP1. Splendid. So you're getting 2 shots at AP1. So suddenly 3 dice, 3, 4, 4 dice hitting on 3s, 3, 4 AP1. That's a reasonable profile. Toxin shot's a little more situational. Takes your damage down to 2, 2. Gives you lethal 5+, and stun. Maybe you want that. But I certainly think for the piercing shot, it's worth having it for the piercing shot. Okay. Yeah. He's also got this hardy rule. So each time he fights in combat or has shooting attack made against it, in result of his step of the shooting attack, each time an attack dice will inflict critical damage, you can choose the attack dice to inflict normal damage instead, so he just ignores crits. That's just not a mechanic that applies to him, right? If you crit him, it was a normal, so, you know, that's pretty good as well, okay? I'm quite a fan of the Cold Blood, so that's our second shooting specialist. The Cut Skin, the Kroot Cut Skin. So he's your first combat specialist. You can buy him a gun. You probably do. This is one of those things where it's your last EP, it's 1 EP, and there's nothing else that's 1 EP. And it's really only useful on the Cut Skin to give him a ranged attack, I guess. So your opponent, this guy's interesting because really he's only good when he's picking off enemy models in combat that don't want to be in combat, right? So he wants to be charging your guardsmen, your navy guys with shotguns, things like that, and he gets better when he is punching down. Okay, so for every time your opponent misses, they take a mortal wound. Right? That's what this Vicious Duelist says. Whenever you fight in combat, in the roll attack dice step of the combat, for each attack dice your opponent discards, they suffer a mortal wound. So, situationally, against a combat specialist with something like a Power Fist, where they're hoping to hit you once and kill you, and they don't care that they're going to miss a load of their dice, he can also dish out some mortal wounds. Although he is going to die in that situation, ideally what he wants to do is run around and bully things that are weaker than him. He's also got Savage Assault, so he can do a fight action with the operative, and after completing the fight sequence, he can then do another fight sequence effectively, which he has to survive the first fight action. So again, he's good at bullying people that don't want to be in combat. He's not really great at taking out other things that are actually good at combat, though. Yeah, that's the Kroot Cut Skin. The Kroot Heavy Gunner. So we've talked a little bit about these. The Dvorgite Skinner, 6 dice hitting on 2s, 2-3, range red, AP2, torrent, and composite. And remember, in the dark as well, torrent means it'll have crit 5 up as well. 6 dice hitting on 2s though with AP2 is really, really good. You know, you're going to dish out a decent amount of damage. It's cumbersome, which means you can't move more than 3 circle and still shoot, but that's not much of a disadvantage. I really like the Skinner. It's reliable, it's hitting on 2s. The Triblast's hitting on 4s. Maybe if you have a really open board and you really need another long-range shooting specialist, you take the Triblast in the open world. But I really much prefer the Skinner. I think the Skinner's one of those powerful weapons that you've got. It's it's AP2 torrent, 6 dice hitting on 2s. It's just really, really solid. Even more solid in the dark, where it's got lethal 5 up baked in as well because of that torrent rule. Yeah. Let me know in the comments if you can see a reason for taking the Londraxi Triblast over the Skinner. Again, yeah, the range. But you've got your bow. You've got your Cold Blood for long range shooting. You've got your Bow Hunter for long range shooting. And in a minute we're going to see the Long Sight who's for long range shooting. So I think the Skinner there gives you a slightly different option, a bit of texture, which is great. The Long Sight, so he's a bit interesting. He has heavy. We hate to see it. 4 dice hitting off 3s, 3-3, heavy mortal wounds 3. So it's 3-6 effectively, which is great. We like to see that. And then he has long sight, 1 AP. Now, the nice thing about having heavy, I guess, is that in any turn that you're shooting this guy, you're also going to be using long sight because you won't be moving and shooting in the same turn. So it gives you something to do with that second APL that you'd have to burn because of heavy, meaning you can't shoot and move. So what that 1 AP does then is it gives you lethal 5 up and silent. So suddenly it's a 3-6 lethal 5 up silent gun, right, which is pretty good. And then it also ignores obscuring, so it gets to be quite, like, if I've got a weapon that's going to have heavy, this is the kind of power level I want that weapon to have, to not feel like the heavy is just unfair. Like, this is actually fine. You know, there's a lot of guns out there where it's like, oh, I need to go heavy, and you're like, oh, now with heavy it's trash. This gun is really ridiculously good. You know, it's ignoring obscuring, it's lethal 5 up, it can potentially do 6 damage, half of which is from mortal wounds on each crit. It can crit on a 5 up. Really good gun. I don't mind that it's heavy because it's sort of, it seems worth it to me. Okay, quite a fan of the long sight. Kind of funny that this came out in Into the Dark, right? I think this team's going to do really badly in close quarters, in corridors. It's kind of funny that they've come in the box for close quarters and corridors. but what you going to do? Then we got the Kroot Pistolier. So this is one of these short range shooting characters that are pretty good. I'm quite a fan of them, especially in Into the Dark, to be fair. So his weapon's pretty good right off the bat. You know, balanced, lethal 5 up, 3/4 damage, 4 dice, 4 shots. He can shoot that twice every turn, which is really good. That's what his Gunslinger Salvo over here takes a lot of words to explain. And then quick draw. If you shoot him, he can interrupt your shooting action to shoot you back. Now, remember he's only got that short range, so someone would have to be shooting at him from within red for him to be able to interrupt and shoot them back. But yeah, powerful ability when it comes off. And again, it's been really good Into the Dark when people are far more on top of each other. It's going to be less good in the open world. The Kroot Stalker I fundamentally don't get, right? So he's got a Kroot Scattergun, which is like a shotgun thing, which is fine. And he's meant to be a combat guy. So he's got this 3 dice hitting on 3s, 3/4 balanced and rending Stalker's Blade, which is fine, right? He can charge from conceal. Okay. And then if he's within black of a terrain piece, he can do a sneak attack. It costs both his AP. He loses his extra circle off charge. But if he's concealed and he manages to get the short charge in, he can fight twice in a row. And I don't mean 2 fight actions. I mean he can resolve, which is much stronger. He can resolve 2 dice in a combat one after the other, which makes him much better. But it's still a lot of setup for something that's not got that much punch to it. It's fiddly. But I quite like it. It's okay. It's just a bit... When there are teams out there that just do the thing really simply without loads of conditions, and it's one of these where you're not becoming overpowered by virtue of having to be within 1 inch of terrain and have your extra lose your extra circle and all this. You're not becoming overpowered because of all that stuff. You're being brought up to the kind of the normal... It feels like he's being brought up to the normal level of power when you meet all these conditions. And if you misplay and don't meet all your conditions, then you're just going to be pasted. So I don't quite go where... I know where they were going with the Kroot. Kroot Tracker. So we saw this guy long ago. I mean, I'm going to cut the chase here with the Kroot Tracker. The main thing with the Kroot Tracker to remember is this from the eye above. 1 AP, and it's a comms with range red. So he does all this other stuff with the bird, but most importantly, he's a comms with range red. He does also create this bird token, which is a token. It goes out, it can move red. And then you can use your AP if you haven't moved and comms, which I think is what you're going to do most of the time. If you haven't moved and comms, then you can use an AP to tell the bird, to tell someone else that they can ignore light cover, which is fine. Yeah, but most of the time it's only moving and commsing, I would have thought. And really, the bird is just an extra nice to have there for those turns when he's commsing without having to move. And then you can mark someone as it is. Yeah. Right, the Warrior and the Doggo are last 2 cards, and they're together because, remember, these are competing for slots. So the Kroot Warrior, nothing really on his card. He's got the standard Kroot Rifle or the Kroot Scattergun. I certainly think Into the Dark, you want to take them with the Scatterguns because they're hitting on 3s, 3/3 damage, and they're going to be in that range of red. The Kroot Rifle, if you're on a big open world board, then maybe go for the Kroot Rifle, but the Scattergun is an interesting option in the dark. The Kroot Hound, if you watch my review of the Starstriders and their Cannid, the Kroot Hound's got the same thing going on, so he's got a lackluster melee profile, but he has got 4 circles of movement, which is great. He can't do mission actions, and he can't have equipment. He has this thing, we've gone over this in the Starstriders one. Essentially, he works as a defensive drone, almost for a combat specialist. If an enemy performs a fight action and they could hit the dog, then they have to hit the dog. And if they charge someone that's within blue of the dog can immediately charge them, and then they have to hit the dog. So he's like an ablative armor. Hello. He's like an ablative armor for a combat specialist. But he also has this amazing ability, Gather, where he can do a free dash, fall back, all normal move, at any point during the move, you can perform pickup, and then you can use any remaining movement that you still have. And to be honest with you, what I think with these last 2 slots is I'm only taking the dogs if I've got something on the table that I can pick up, right? If there's something that I want to pick up, then maybe I'm going to take my doggos to pick them up. All of the times, I'm going to take my warriors. Now, while I think about it, if we just click to the objectives here, yeah, so you can, if you take this butcher attack up, that does have some synergy with the dogs because it gives us something to pick up in every single game. So bear that in mind when we come on to the tack ops. You might be taking a tack op which synergizes with your dogs. So you'll be taking, if you really want the dogs to be in and be cool, then maybe you take that tack op so they've got something to do, and then the dogs can run around gathering the meat for you, which is pretty cool and pretty thematic. But the warriors are good because they can do stuff, they can do objectives, they can open doors, they can do all these different things. Okay, equipment, we've talked about a lot of this already. Quill grenades are fine. I don't really rate frag grenades, you know, the weak damage blast grenades. Other people will go, yeah, it's a grenade, praise the sun, but I don't. If it was a crack grenade, yeah, if it was a crack grenade, I'd be all for it. But I don't really rate frag grenades so much. And this is essentially just a frag grenade. It might even be worse than a frag grenade. Yeah, it's a frag grenade. Piercing shot and toxin shot we talked about. Piercing shot's pretty good. It's 2 EP. Do you want to hand it out to all you guys with your Kroot rifles so they can have a shot at AP1? Because of the limited, I'm going to say probably not. Like, 2 EP for 1 shot at AP1. Remember that the Cold Blood gets 2 shots with it, and he gets it for free. 2 EP for 1 shot at AP1 is a bit kind of like, well... Toxin shot I definitely wouldn't bother with, okay. Meat's really good. Oh, I meant to say, sorry, piercing shot, you can give it to the duelist, which might be a decent shout, okay, because it'll give his gun a little bit more oomph, and he's more likely to hit with it. But again, it's only 1 use. Even if you're doing the special ability where you can shoot twice, only 1 of those shots is going to be with the piercing shot profile, I think. Meat, I quite like meat, right? So meat's really simple. It's 3 EP. You hand out your meat, and at some point, once during the battle, when this operative is activated, you use the ability. If you do, the operative regains D3+1 lost wounds. And you haven't got a medic on your team, so that's pretty good. Put it on high value people that you know that your enemy's going to want to kill, and then when they take too much damage, they can eat their meat and be back to full power. Good, really good. Trophy. So trophies are 1 use, 4 EP, expensive. A 1 use item which gives you an extra APL. I could see them coming in into the dark where you're going to have to worry about getting the extra APL to open doors. Yes, you've got a comms, you get a 3rd APL that way. But if you look at the map and you see, well, I'm going to need an extra APL here on this turn, you could use, you could use the trophy to do that, which is good. Ritual Blade, we've talked about it. It's alright, but it's kind of offensive that you have to buy it. It should just come with the leader for free. Yeah. And the Kroot pistol is meh, but it's 1 EP. So, like, I feel like, 3 meats and a Kroot pistol will be 1 loadout that I'd go for. Because I quite like meat. You know, on open world with Kroot, I put 3 meat on my 3 favourite operatives. And, yeah, and then the Kroot pistol on the cutthroat guy. Just because 1 EP. Ploys! So they're all 1 CP, which is what we like to see. Strategic ploys first, so cutthroats. Until the end of the turning point, and 1 to the attack characteristic of all melee weapons to a maximum of 4. If you know you're going to have a good big melee turn, then you can turn on cutthroats. But to remind you again, I do think this is more of a shooting team, to be honest. But if you can see, big melee turns coming, yeah, then use cutthroats. Farstalk. Immediately change the order up to 3 friendly operatives, though more than blue from enemy operatives. I like this, especially for turn 1. If you've got guys set up in conceal with on vantage points or on fire lines, it means, and you make sure your opponent knows that you've got this Farstalk ability, it means that you can really constrain their turn 1, because they're not going to want to leave a model anywhere where you could just go, oh, well, I buy this and I order flip. You know, but at the same time, well, I mean, you have to declare at the start of your turn, I guess. So actually, yeah, you can't use it like that, can you? You can't use it as a thing to hold back. Maybe it's more useful then. Forget what I wrote on the slide. Forget what I wrote on the slide. We're not talking about going from conceal to engage. To jump out at somebody. We're looking at people that we've left on and engage who are in danger, being able to whip them back into conceal at the start of the turn to later activate them and put them back on engage, aren't we? Still useful. Situational, but still useful. Alright, Prey. Now, Prey, I believe, is absolutely key. I like Prey a lot. So it's 1 CP. When you activate an operative, you can choose... So you can choose to use this ability or not. If you do, until the end of the turning point, his ranged weapon becomes balanced and heavy. Really good part of this is that you can choose. So you pay once for your whole team. You've got the option of, yes, I'm going to use this to gain balanced and get that reroll, but I have to have heavy. If you want to move, you can. You still move and shoot, you just don't activate the ability and therefore don't benefit from balanced. If you don't need to move that turn, free balanced. I think Prey's pretty good, right? Prey's pretty good. Bound is a movement ability. Bound is a movement ability. She's okay. Bound is a movement ability, which, yeah, I think these are powerful. Ignore the first circle of distance to travel whenever you climb, drop, or traverse. Automatically pass jump tests. Very tempting to play that most turns, depending on the map, depending on the layout, depending on what you're trying to do. But I quite like Bound. I quite like those kinds of abilities. Oh, excuse me, the slides are moving on their own. Tactical ploys, mercenary contract. So this is one of those abilities where you can use the tactical ploy in your select tac ops step when building your tac ops deck. Instead of adding one card to your deck from your selected archetype, you can add one from an archetype you did not choose. You must still have a 6-card deck. Especially in the dark, where there's various tac ops on the ban list, this is a nice to have, right? Lets you build a slightly more achievable tac op deck. I'm a big fan. Slip away is pointless. You pay 1 CP, you can fall back for free. Like, okay, it's in your back pocket. You don't need to declare it in advance. You might end up needing to do a fallback move for free. I guess if someone charges your pistolier, you can do this for free and then still shoot with your pistolier, right? Maybe. If it's free, can you still shoot? Potentially. I just don't really rate it that highly. Because of how, unoften it is that fallback actions come up, you know? Poach, on the other hand, is very strong and will straight up win you games. So what this allows you to do, use this tactical ploy when a friendly Farstrider Kinband operative is activated. Until the end of its activation, the operative only needs to be within the required range of objective markers to perform the mission action or pick it up. They do not need to control it. So you chain it. You could chain this with your Kroot hounds, run in, pick things up right under somebody's legs and piss off with them like the sausages in the advert. That's amazing. But even without the dogs, just anyone being able to wander up to an objective and do the thing, even if there's this Chaos Space Marine standing on there, going, oh yeah, I'm scoring this and I'm modifying your APL for the purposes of controlling it and all this and the other, and you're like, well, poach, okay. Now I don't need to control it. And I can still interact with it. Ha 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 ha. That's pretty good. It will win you games. Guaranteed Poach will win you games. And then Vengeance for the Kinband. I believe that you're going to pop this every time one of your characters dies. 1 CP, Vengeance for the Kinband. Essentially what it does, if one of you enemy models has killed one of your models, then for the rest of the game... for the rest of the game... whenever you fight in combat or make a shooting attack, you can re-roll any or all of your attack dice against that one model. So, as your stuff dies, your other stuff can hurt that really easily. So, between Vengeance of the Kinband and Prey and the Call the Kill ability on your leader, this is how you're trying to counteract your rubbish ballistic skill. And that's basically the team, I think. It's trying to use those 3 abilities to not have to deal with the fact you're BS4. Tac Ops, very quickly. Butcher. Reveal attack op the first time an enemy operative is incapacitated. Each time an enemy operative is incapacitated, before it's removed from the kill zone, place one of your meat tokens underneath the operative as close as possible to the centre of its base. The pickup action can be performed upon your meat tokens by an operative, even if they're carrying another objective marker or token. At the end of the battle, the total number of meat tokens that friendly operatives control is equal to or more than a quarter of the number of enemy operatives selected for deployment. You gain 1 VP. At the end of the battle, the total number of your meat tokens that friendly operatives control is equal to or more than the number of enemy operatives selected for deployment. You score 1 VP. I think this is mainly a shooting team, so I don't necessarily want to be close with people. However, as I realised while I was recording, this does have amazing synergy with the Kroot Hound. So I have actually changed my mind since I made the slide. I'm going to take Butcher, if I'm running this team. I'm going to take it every game, just so my 2 Kroot Hounds can run around like mentalists trying to steal people's dead bodies, because that's really funny. And it might be actually really quite good. If nothing else, you're going to force your opponent to spend time shooting at your Kroot Hounds and not any of your good stuff, right? So yeah, why not? Butcher. It'll be funny. Balance the books is really dumb. So you reveal it when you score maximum victory points from another attack op. If you score maximum victory points from attack op and no more than half your operatives have been incapacitated, score a VP. If you do that again, score the second VP. Are you winning? If you're winning, you can win some more. You know, it's up to you whether you like that kind of ability or not. I'm not the biggest fan, but again, I guess you'd take it if your deck was otherwise full of things that you didn't like. And finally, Bounty Hunters. Reveal this tack op in the target reveal step of the first turning point. Your opponent selects one of your operatives. And I basically stop reading. Anything like this where it's like your opponent selects one of your operatives, I'm like, well, do I want my opponent to have that much control over what I'm trying to do in the game? Probably not. Probably not. And that's it. That's my rundown of the Kroot. The Kroot are a shooty team with some incongruous combat specialists. The Kroot seem like a really tricky team to do well with due to the low base BS and the fact you're going to have to try and use various gimmicks to make them just as effective as other teams, right? Which is the problem. I don't have a problem with teams that require you to put a lot of effort in and stack a lot of things up to then reach a point where you're better than other teams. But with the Kroot, it feels like you're trying to work on a few gimmicks just to bring us up to the level of other teams that don't have to work as hard to be just as good. Okay, so they seem a bit weak overall to me, but I think they're probably workable. If you love Kroot and you were excited to get the Kroot and you bought and painted them, got all your little Kroot hounds and things on your table, then I do say go for it, because I don't think they're trash. I just think that they're a little challenging to play with, and they're a little unrewarding when you actually master them. It's like, okay, but then is that all they do? If you've got other ideas, if you can see where Kroot are going wrong, then please do let me know down in the comments. We can have a big chat down there. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, please do consider subscribing. We're getting pretty close now to the 900, right? Very close to the 900. There'll be last 100 more subs till we get to the big 1,000 subs, which would be amazing. And apart from that, I hope you have a great day. Cheerio. Cheerio, folks. Bye-bye.